The best of Money Matters. Right Business.
Welcome to The Right Business, where we dive deep into the stories of trailblazers who dare to disrupt the status quo, find the gap in the market to find the right business. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, our next guest once managed a $1.3 billion US portfolio at JP Morgan. But today, she's helping others manage their mental and emotional well-being. Her ThoughtFull app provides the bite-sized counseling sessions with certified professionals and mental wellness programs for corporate and educational organizations. Her vision is for seeking mental health to be as aspirational and habit-forming as seeking physical health is today. So how is ThoughtFull making preventative mental health care accessible to all? Well, to find out more, joining us today is Joan Low, who is the CEO and founder of ThoughtFull. Hi, Joan. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello.
All right, Joan, you shared that a chicken rice meal and a conversation with your uncle led to a life-changing opportunity. How did that exact moment, help shape your future, and how did it eventually lead you to founding ThoughtFull?
Well, go get chicken rice, everyone. It's life-changing. No, so I think what happened was we were talking about education. It was right after Sec 5, basically. And I think that's a very pivotal moment for a lot of people in life. And that conversation led to a scholarship, which then I think opened up my world. And then 20 years on, it's taken me to, half of that decade in North America, between Canada and the US, France, China, and then working in Hong Kong, where I was working in finance. And one thing led to the other. And I think the work that I do today at ThoughtFull is really 20 plus years in the making. And it's been a calling. And who knew that one chicken rice conversation would open up my mind, open up my world to what possibilities there are.
Wow, that's a magical chicken rice meal right there. I think for dinner today, I might just have some chicken rice and have a life-changing moment. Well, okay, on this thought, mental health wasn't widely discussed when you started ThoughtFull. Yeah. What motivated you to focus on this cause, and how did your personal experiences kind of shape your approach to mental health?
So we've been mental health caregivers for the last 25 years plus. So, it's not something that happened overnight. It's really been 2.5 decade kind of journey. I think one of the things that really struck me when we were going through this experience, and this is Southeast Asia in the late 90s, early 2000s, was just how lacking the awareness and also just mental health literacy was. We didn't really know what it was. Right. And also the lack of resources that there were back then. It's evolved tremendously over time, but I think there's still much to do. And so when ThoughtFull started in 2018-19, and this was before the pandemic, mental health was much better compared to the 90s. However, I think there was still a bit of stigma around that. And for a lot of the corporates where, I think majority of people spend their time in the workplace, right? It was a nice to have and not a need to have. And that's fundamentally changed since the pandemic, if there's a silver lining out of everything. Right. And I think one of the things that really is almost kind of coming full circle is the fact that, that for the person that inspired this whole ThoughtFull journey that we've been, kind of journeying with for the last 25 years. It actually did start in the workplace.
Okay.
And then I think because back then preventive, measures were not there, awareness was not there, you don't see the signs and symptoms and the resources are just not available. And so, things started getting from bad to worse without us realizing. And then sometimes, you do look back and think, hey, if there were better infrastructure, both within the family, within the personal space and the professional space, would outcomes be slightly different? And I think today at ThoughtFull, we are simplifying this whole journey for mental health. We do have a large focus in the workplace because I believe a lot of time is spent there. A lot of stress factors do come from that environment. And there's so much we can do in putting, the resources there so that hopefully someone will have a very different outcome as we hope for.
I see. Well, when launching ThoughtFull Chat, how did you navigate the challenges of bringing, digital mental health services to a market that might not have been fully ready for it?
So I think if I launched it in 2018, the market would have completely not been ready. And that's why when I started, it was actually just very much focused on workshops and education in the first place. The ThoughtFull app launched in 2020, just as the pandemic was launching. Right. And we kind kind of came into the market with a corporate as well as an insurer. I think one of the biggest challenges at that time was, it was also an unprecedented time. So I think it was almost a lightning in a bottle situation, because if you told someone that remote, virtual, and anything to do with online for healthcare was necessary, I think before the pandemic, no one would have said yes. But because of the environment we were in, our text-based coaching and therapy on a daily basis really took flight because A, people were stuck at home and we were all quarantined. B, it actually also helped with the stigma. Because I think a lot of times the idea of sitting in front of someone, whether through Zoom or whether face-to-face, can be quite overwhelming for someone to, talk about their growth journey and all of that. And so I think texting was something that was a little bit, a lower barrier to entry to test it out. And what we saw is as people were asynchronously, texting our professionals as they would, with a friend or a spouse, they got comfortable with the idea of talking about, certain things in their life, challenges and growth. And then they opened up to all the other avenues as well. And so I think there was a lot of education that we needed to do for the market. We did have to hyper-localize as well, because as you know, even in Singapore, it's multicultural.
Right.
At any one point, one sentence has 4 different languages in it.
Right.
And so having that hyper-localization with our counselors, with the app that's now in, 12 different languages to serve the different markets was very important, and we had to prioritize that. But I think the final thing that we did have to do and navigate, which people don't see, is actually standardizing what quality care looks like digitally.
Sounds very complicated.
Yeah, so training counselors and psychologists about mobile security, data security, don't screenshot your chats.
Yes.
That's not kosher.
Yeah.
And things like that were things that we had to set the standards for 5-6 years ago, and standardizing that across how care is delivered in the Singaporean context, in the Filipino context, Malaysian context. For every country we went to, we had to do that.
Right.
And so it's been quite a journey. We have been the pioneers of, I think, digital delivery of mental health. But I'm very glad to see where Singapore is going today with mental health. I mean, it's top of priority for the nation.
Right.
So, yeah, times have changed.
Yeah, certainly has. And it's great to see that mental health is now a priority and people are tackling that, and it's no longer a taboo. Now, your platform offers a range of services, from self-care tools to access to, certified mental health professionals. Could you help explain how some of these services work, and how do you balance accessibility with maintaining the quality of integrity of the service?
Great question. I think quality and growth are two sides of the coin we're always going to be balancing. So for ThoughtFull, how we work with our clients is as such. Most of the time, majority of our business is in the corporate side. So, a company will sign us on, and all employees will have access to the ThoughtFull app, where they can access self-serve tools. So, lessons around well-being, assessments to see where their stress levels are, for example. Our algorithms will find them their best fit mental health professional as well. It's instant. So, you get to text them immediately and kind of discover that journey with them, all the way to booking video therapy within 24 hours, face-to-face. I have 24/7 hotlines across multiple languages. So it's truly the whole end-to-end kind of offering all through the app. For them, I think one of the things that is important is obviously the quality of care and the experience that they have. And I think as a healthcare, but also as a tech company, you do have to be very thoughtful, pun intended, in how you grow. And so for ThoughtFull, I think we've always been very mindful of, number one, how do we make sure that the care journey for each and every one of these individuals is personalized to them. Obviously, AI helps with that. Obviously, in terms of like the digital design, that also helps with that. And of course, our professionals will help them with that journey. The other one, I think, is also being very mindful. And this is more on the strategic side. side, that knowing that the growth at all cost model might not work for all companies, and especially for a company in healthcare where you can't simply give a refund for someone's mental health or, exchange a product. You do have that incumbent responsibility to know that the pace of your growth needs to honor the quality of care that you deliver. Because if you go from from zero to a hyper growth phase, usually the care is the one that gets diluted very quickly. So we've been very mindful of that. We've been very blessed to have the right partners. I mean, we're backed by Temasek, for example, people who know healthcare very well, people who have that long-term view on how healthcare should be in supporting how we built this care model for everyone. And so yeah, I think it's something we're very intentional about and very thoughtful about when we go about growing.
I see. Well, I mean, you've had this strong push for ThoughtFull or to integrate ThoughtFull into these corporate wellness programs. What do you believe is the role of businesses in supporting mental health, and how do you encourage them to get involved?
There are many ways. I think everyone has a different starting point, but I'll almost expand the angle a bit and really share that actually it's both the business, the employer and the employee have a role to play in cultivating the right environment for well-being. I think on the employer side, on the business side, a couple of things. First and foremost, do get the infrastructure in place. Over the years, we've worked with companies, for example, who have, you start from ground zero. They've never had any mental health infrastructure before. And then we've also worked with, MNCs who already have something globally and they're trying to localize it, right? Regardless of that starting point as a company, I think getting the right infrastructure for your demographic is important. So, laying the groundwork, making sure you have the core services in place, whether it's, text, video, face-to-face, 24/7 hotlines, whatever it may be, have the infrastructure there. It should be part of health and safety, for example, right? And then I think the next layer is once you do have that infrastructure in place, how do you go about normalizing and making it okay for everyone to feel comfortable using that infrastructure? I think that's where that culture shift comes about. And a lot of it comes from the powerful messaging from the top all the way down. And so the most successful, programs and environments that we've seen is where the leadership truly do stand behind well-being for their employees. They reinforce it. They talk about it consistently, but they also empower all the layers of people managers to actually fulfill and cultivate that environment. So, training all people managers on what well-being is, what it isn't, making sure that they know how they can support their employees and when they can support themselves as well when it gets a little bit overwhelming. And so I think that the whole cultural and education aspect is top to bottom. And then there's the other part, right? The other side of the coin is on the employee side. I think a lot of times it's also taking the perspective that, hey, we all have a part to build this culture. Culture is not just what an HR policy is. It's not what the CEO says usually. It's what everyone lives and breathes. And so I think helping each other to reinforce that culture, but also, and you're seeing this more and more, it's very topical now, there's almost a bit of a rollback on some of the diversity and inclusion policies, a bit of an anti-woke culture that's happening starting from the US and kind of trickling down. I think this is where it's also important on the far extreme side for employees to also honor that these resources are for you to engage with, to use, but not to weaponize. Because I think the struggle then for the employer is, hey, if I roll all of this out, are my employees going to use this as an excuse to not be productive or work? And that's the far extreme, which I think it's incumbent on employees to have the integrity, to know the responsibility that they bear as well in that whole culture of well-being. So all sides of the coin has a role to play.
Amazing. Well, looking to the future here, Joan, what's next for ThoughtFull then? Are there any upcoming innovations or new features that you're particularly excited about?
Oh, super excited. It's happening in 2 weeks, actually.
Oh, tell us. Give us a little tease.
So ThoughtFull has just gone through a full rebranding.
Okay.
And so we have a whole suite of new products rolling out. In fact, our ThoughtFull Insights dashboard that is usually used used by the employers to have, aggregated and confidential insights to how the program is going and all of that. That's been rolled out already. But in 2 weeks' time, we're actually launching our very new ThoughtFull app. It will be a new look, same mission, of course, but new look, new experience. It will be further customized and personalized to the individual using it. There'll be more features, more hyper-localization, and it's going to be more fun and interactive. So stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much, Joan, for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was Joan Low, who is a CEO and founder of ThoughtFull. This has been The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.